Hello, good day, everyone. It's a pleasure to have you all here once again as we continue with our training on project management tools organized by Gad Academy, specifically under the Big Push Bootcamp. Today, we are going to continue with the project management course, and specifically, we are going to talk about project management frameworks. Right, good. So, from our past interactions, we discussed what project management is. We looked at certain tools that you can actually use when it comes to project management. We also discussed some of the strategies, interpersonal skills, and even certain diagrams that can help you when you are managing projects, right? But today we are going to look at project management frameworks. We've already looked at the tools. Now we are going to look at the project management frameworks. Right, good. So before we start, right, let's have it clear that we are already done with project management tools and we are looking forward to finishing up with project management frameworks. Right, good. So it is very important to know that having tools without frameworks is just digital chaos, because if you have the tool and you don't really know how to organize your stuff using the tools and all that, you end up not using it judiciously. You get it? So today we are going to dive into project management frameworks, and we see how it can help us in our project management journey. Right, good. So first, we are going to look at tools versus frameworks. Right, we've already discussed what project management tools are. Today, we are going to look at what's the difference between the tools and the frameworks. All right, good. So tools are what you use, as simple as ABCD, and the frameworks are how you think. You get it? Because at the end of the day, you have to combine your thinking with the use of the tool. Because if you just have the tool and you don't know how to think through and use the tool, then what are you using it for? Right? So this is where the frameworks come in. You get it? So a framework is the invisible structure that decides four things. The first one is how work gets done, how work gets broken down, how decisions get made, how progress gets measured, and how the team adapts when reality changes the plan. You get it? So you realize that frameworks are very important. You don't just look at the tools, you have to also look at the frameworks. One of the things that a lot of people actually make is that they just know how to use the project management tools, but they don't understand the frameworks behind using the tools. So you realize that they start managing a project and it doesn't go well, although they are very good at using the tool. So it is very, very important to know the frameworks behind using the project management tools. And that is what we are going to discuss today. All right, good. So we are going to jump straight into the types of project management frameworks. And there are two of them. The first one is a predictive one, and the second one is an adaptive one. You get it? So before I explain in detail, I would want you to have this thing in mind. Whenever you are managing a project, right, there are situations where you actually know what would happen. So you know that this project, the plan is static, it doesn't change, right? So you know the outcome, you know the series of steps you have to go through to get the work done. And there are certain instances where the process is adaptive. It keeps on changing. There are a lot of iterations along the line. You get it? So you need to know these two things. Else, if you just start a project and choose the right you don't choose the right framework, you'd end up in a messy process. You get it? So before you start managing a project, ask yourself, would this project plan be a predictive one or will be an adaptive one? So if you get to know that, then you can then move on to the next step. You get it? So let's break this down in detail, right? So when you look at the predictive, that is the plan-driven project management framework. You define everything up front because you know the series of steps. You get it? Yes. So you define everything up front, you execute the plan. And with this, change is expensive. You get it? And this predictive plan is usually used when the requirements are stable. So nothing changes along the line. You get it? Yes. And this is usually used in construction, manufacturing, banking, regulated work, fixed scope tenders. So you realize that these are some of the works that require manual procedures. You get it? Yes. You know that this is fixed. If we don't do A, we can't do B. You know that you move from A to B to C to D. So with this, the plan is predictive. You get it? Good. So I explained what the critical path method is in our previous lesson. Today I'll explain what waterfall is. So don't be scared about that. So most of the methodologies you use when it comes to project management under the predictive type, the plan driven type, we have waterfall and critical path method, right? Good. Now we have the adaptive one, which is change driven. So with this kind of project management framework, you plan in short cycles. The reason why you plan in short cycles is because as you move on, as you keep on working, you realize that there will be a lot of changes. There will be a lot of iterations, right? So you have to plan in short cycles. Else, if you plan in longer cycles, you end up putting yourself in a mess because definitely there will be a change and you have to change the plan you have. You get it? So short cycles is very important. Now, the next thing is you adjust as you learn. And with this, change is welcome. You get it? Now, this adaptive strategy is usually used in the software ecosystem, right? The software business ecosystem. So let me give you an example. Let's say you are working with a client, right? So a client comes to you to build an AI powered system for their business. Now, I am in the software business ecosystem, so I understand how these processes work, right? So what we do is that when a client comes, we do have a discovery call. So the discovery call is to understand the pain points of the client, right? When I say pain point, I mean the problems that the client is facing, the business is facing, right? Then what we do is that after we get those pain points, we then design the product features, right? We use user stories. So we design the product features around the problems. You get it? Before we build it. Now, in the process of building, there are stages. We have the design phase, we have the front end phase, we have the back end phase. Now, when the designer is working on the design for the software, right, there are lots of iterations. We can do certain designs the client may not like in terms of probably the colors or how minimalistic the design is, or certain features that would not be relevant to the business because they understand their business better than us. We are the builders. You get to realize that with a project like this, there are a whole lot of iterations. You get it? So you go with the adaptive strategy. You don't go with the predictive strategy. You get it? So what we do is that since we know is the adaptive strategy, we keep the client in the loop. We do ask questions. We engage their employers and their employees. What are some of the problems they are also facing and all that? Then we use that. We iterate on that. Then we finally build the product for them. You get it? Good. And marketing. Yes. Marketing is also another the marketing ecosystem is also adaptive in the sense that, let me give you an example. As part of this big push bootcamp, we added copywriting. Yes. And for the copywriting, you realize that I taught something around A/B testing. So basically, when you write a copy, right, you give it to two people, you ask them how they feel about the copy. You get it? Because you as the copywriter, sometimes when you create a copy, you feel like the copy would perform very well. But then when one person reads it, the person tends to understand it differently from another person. You get it? Good. So even with this process, it's iterative because at some point in time, when we get to the copywriting phase, you can actually do some changes which might affect the entire flow of the project. You get it? Yeah. So marketing is also adaptive. We also have product development. In product development, example, the software project I mentioned earlier, it also goes through a lot of iterative processes. You get it? So sometimes you do one thing, you realize that it's not working, or you build something, it works internally, but when you bring it out to the world to test the market, you realize that customers are actually not paying for your products. You have to go back, understand their problem, get back to the drawing board and build the product again. So product development is also an adaptive process. You get it? So with this, we are going to use Scrum, Kanban, and then the lean methodology as well, right? So these are basically the two types of project management frameworks, right? So we are going to break them down and explain. So take your time and make sure you understand it very well, right? So the first one we are going to talk about is the waterfall framework. So this framework is also known as sequential planning. Sequential planning, right? It's very easy. It's very easy. So think of this as a waterfall. In Ghana, there are a whole lot of waterfalls here. Realize that from the top, the water moves from the top to the bottom and then it flows somewhere else. I don't know where it goes. I don't know if it returns, but I mean, you get that analogy, right? So it is the same thing, right? We have sequential planning. So you finish one phase before the next phase begins. That is what we know. That is what we need to know about the waterfall framework, right? So you can see this. You finish one phase finishes before the next begins, right? So this is the flow. First, you initiate, you plan, you execute, you monitor, and you close. As simple as ABCD, right? And the waterfall framework is usually used when the end product is clear from day one. When the end product is clear from day one. So you realize that if the end product is clear from day one, then most likely we are looking at what? The predictive type of project management framework. That is why waterfall falls under the predictive type. You get it? Now, you know that the requirements won't change. As discussed here, that the requirements are what? Stable. So the requirements won't change and the work is regulated or contractual. Right? Good. So realize that most of these predictive project management framework is usually used under regulated work and construction. I mean, contractual, manufacturing, banking, fixed scope, tenders, and all. Right? As simple as ABCD. Right? Good. So that is what we mean by the waterfall framework, and avoid using the waterfall framework when customers will change their minds. If a customer will change his mind, don't use the waterfall. And if you are building something new, don't use the waterfall, because building something new, you don't know, although you have, let's say, the the mindset, or you have a feel of how the end product will be, but then building something new has a whole lot of processes you have to go through, and it's iterative. You build something, it may not work, you have to go to the market, test it out, know the real problems, get back to the drawing board and start working again. You get it? So it's iterative and it's adaptive. So you can't use the waterfall approach. Take note of that. Get it? Good. Unless you are you are God. Yeah. Unless you are God. Yeah. So that's the waterfall framework. Then the second framework is the Scrum framework. So the Scrum framework is very simple. You are basically working in sprints. So, and of course, you know that the Scrum framework falls under the adaptive type, because you are going to work in cycles. You get it? Because there will be a whole lot of changes. You get it? So you can't plan for a long cycle, else you end up in a mess. You get it? Good. So for the Scrum, don't plan a year. Plan 2 weeks. Deliver. Learn. Plan two more weeks. That's what the Scrum frameworks talks about. You get it? Now there are three main rules when it comes to the Scrum framework. The first one is the product owner, the second one is the Scrum master, and the third one is the development team. So the product owner is the one who decides what gets built. The Scrum master removes blockers, and the development team decides how to build it. You get it? So the Scrum is usually used. The Scrum is usually used for in marketing agencies. I'll give an example real quick for you to understand well, right? So let's break down the four key events, right? Let's break down the four key events. Then I'll give you a typical example of how the Scrum framework works. You get it? So the first one is the sprint. So 1 to 4 weeks of focused work. So the scope is locked, and there's 1 to 4 weeks of focused work. So that is the sprint. Then we have daily stand-up. So usually when you go to certain companies, they call it stand-up meetings. Some companies also call it team huddles. For my company at Dreamosoft or Vubota AI, whatever it is, we call it team huddles. So we do have 15 minutes calls to discuss, I mean, what you built, I mean, what you finished, what you are doing, and what's blocking you. So if there's something blocking you, the project manager gets to know what is blocking you. Then he or she removes all those blockers. So that's where the Scrum Master comes in. You get it? So we have daily stand up. So it's a 15 minutes meaning. 15 minutes. It could mean a meeting, right? Yeah. So here you do three main things: what I finished, what I'm doing, what's blocking me. So that's the daily stand up. Then we have the sprint review. So you show stakeholders what shipped. You get it? So usually when teams do have their daily stand-ups, project managers can actually communicate with their stakeholders on what was worked on, what was shipped. You get it? So that's the sprint review. And then we have the retrospective. And with this one, it is what worked, what changes next sprint. You get it? So this is what makes the Scrum project management framework. And let me give you an example. A marketing agency runs 2-week sprints. Every other Monday, they pick priorities. Every other Friday, they review what's shipped, right? And they never plan all of Q3 in January. When I say Q3, they are the Q1 is the first quarter of the year, Q2 is the second quarter of the year, Q3 is the third quarter of the year. You get it? So marketing agencies don't plan Q3 all in January. No, because they work in sprints. You get it? Good. So that's basically an example. And usually the Scrum framework is mostly used in the software companies as well, right? Yeah, the software and most of the digital companies. Yes, so that's the Scrum framework. And then we also have the Kanban. I've already explained what the Kanban is, but then today I would dive deeper into that as well. Maybe I can give some examples to explain that, right? So the Kanban is more like managing workflow. So if Scrum is about cycles, so realize that if Scrum, you can see the cycles here. If Scrum is about cycles, Kanban is about flow, right? Now there are three rules when it comes to the Kanban project management framework. The first one is you visualize the work. Second one is you limit work in progress. And the third one is you manage the flow. You get it? So visualize the work. Every task on a board, backlog in progress, review whether it's done or not done. Now let me show you something. If you've ever used Clicker before, they have a section where you can actually choose a board. I'm not able to share my Clicker because it's a company account and I might share some information which shouldn't go public, right? Yeah, so I'll just use an image here to explain what I mean by that. Right. So okay. So look at this. Realize that when you check this board very well, you can see the backlog, you can see doing, review, done. So with the backlog, you get to know all the list of tasks that needs to be done. right? Let me confirm what is a backlog. Yeah, so a backlog basically is an accumulated list of tasks, features, or requirements that need to be that needs to be completed, acting as a prioritized dynamic queue for future work. You get it? So this is the backlog, this doing. I mean, the list of tasks that are in the process of getting done. We have the review section. So there are certain tasks that need review. You get it? So let's say you are working as a software company, right? When a designer is designing the system for, let's say, the client, maybe the client wants to review what's supposed to be done, or let's say the senior UI UX designer wants to review. You get it? So if the task is under review, you can shift that here, and if it is done, you can move it here. So you realize that Kanban focuses on flow. You realize that it focuses on flow, not unlike Scrum that focuses on cycles. You get it? Good. So let's continue with what we're doing. Yeah. So you visualize the work. So backlog, in progress, review, done. I mean, you can change them. You can change them in relation to what you feel like would work for your company, right? And we have the limit work in progress. So cap how many cards sit in any column at once. Without WIP limits, your Kanban board is just a to-do list, right? Good. So, there's this principle of essentialism. Maybe I'll share a document with you later on. Yeah. When you're a project manager, right, you don't have to list so many tasks. You are going to overwhelm the people working on the project. You need to use the principle of essentialism and get the most important tasks that needs to be done. You know, certain most of the times there are certain tasks that are related. You can combine them into one so that you don't have so many cards. You get it? Because if you have so many cards under the work in progress, you're going to overwhelm the team. You get it? Because assuming you just wake up, you check your project management software, you go to in progress, and there are so many tasks. How would you feel? You get it? Good. Now, the third one is you manage the flow. When a column gets stuck, the team swarms to clear it before pulling new work. So this is what we mean by managing the flow. So if, let's say, the under in progress, there are certain tasks that needs to be done. Definitely, you know that you have to actually complete it before moving on to the next thing, right? So you can actually list all of them down and you can take it step by step, right? Now, this is best for customer support, content production, operations teams, anything that doesn't fit into sprints. You get it? Yeah. Anything that doesn't fit into sprints, you use the Kanban project management framework, right? Good. So that's what it means. Now, the last framework we are going to talk about is the hybrid framework. And this is the framework that is widely used by most teams now. So currently, there are a lot of companies or businesses that do not run on just one project management style or framework, right? So not something like a pure Scrum method or pure Kanban or pure Waterfall. They do a mix of them, right? Good. Let me give you this analogy. To be a very good leader, right? You don't have to just select one type of leadership. Let's say the democratic type. You have to be all the types: autocratic, democratic, laissez-faire, all of them. But then you use them at the right time. You get it? There are some instances when you want to make decisions very fast, right? And you don't really need the opinions of your followers. You can go the autocratic style. You get it? So this is more like, in relation to project management, this is more like the hybrid approach where you combine the Scrum method, the Kanban framework, and then Waterfall, all of them, right? Good. This is the work of the project manager, so he or she may know how to do that, right? Good. So most working teams mix a milestone plan from Waterfall, a stand up and retro from Scrum, a board with WIP limits from Kanban, and that combination is what 90% of effective PMs are running. Yes. So you can basically combine all of them and you can take it from there, right? Yes. Good. But then let me give you this advice. You know, I've taught you guys the frameworks, and you know what is good for each of the frameworks. Now, the fact that I said this is good for this doesn't mean you have to always stick to it. There's always the hybrid approach, right? So pick what solves your team's actual problems, not what looks pure on paper. Sometimes you might do a research and realize that, oh, well, this project management framework is used for, let's say, construction purposes. So that's what I'm going to stick with. It could be that your team's actual problems are different. You get it? So you pick the one that solves your team's actual problems, because as a project manager, you work directly with the team. You get it? Good. Now, to end this lesson, I want to explain one more thing, then we move on to the final content for the lesson, right? Now, how to choose the right framework, as simple as ABCD. I just discussed here that you pick what solves your team's actual problems, not what looks pure on paper, right? So how do you choose the right framework? Now you can ask yourself 3 questions. The first question is, how clear is the end product? How fast does the environment change? And what does your team already know? So how clear is the end product? If the end product is clear, then you can use Waterfall because you know it's predictive. If it's roughly clear, you can use what? Scrum, because you work in sprints. And if it's a continuous service, you use Kanban. Continuous service in the sense that there are a whole lot of backlogs coming in. There are a whole lot of tasks coming in. So like customer support. If let's say your business is handling 1 million customers, definitely you know that there are going to be customer issues. So there will be problems coming in. So if it's a continuous service, with this, you have to use the Kanban approach. You get it? Good. Now, the second one is, how fast does the environment change? You realize that when we're talking about the project management frameworks, we looked at the predictive type and we looked at the adaptive type. And the predictive and adaptive, what interlinks them is change, right? So if the environment changes slowly, you can use the waterfall approach, because you know the waterfall approach is predictive. If it changes quarterly, you can use Scrum because you work in sprints. You get it? Yeah. You can link a quarter to more like a sprint, the analogy of a sprint, right? And if it is weekly, you can use Kanban. You get it? And what does your team already know? Now, if you are new to project management, you can start with Kanban, because Kanban is more simpler, because you're just managing a flow. You get it? It's simple. Like, you just have a board, you shift the task. If it's done, if it's under review, just move them, right? Yes. If you are new to PM, you start with Kanban because the board is intuitive. You add Scrum elements as the team matures, right? Good. So you can explain this in further. I mean, it goes a lot, but then I'll just end here. Yeah, the final thing I would want to say is that always use the 80-20 principle. 80% of the value comes from 3 things: a visible board, a weekly review, and a willingness to change the plan when reality changes. Use the 80-20 rule, the principle of essentialism. Make sure ensure that the 20% of the tasks that you do solves 80% of the work. You get it? Don't do otherwise. Don't do 80% of the task that solve 20% of the work. You're wasting your time, right? You can read more on the 80-20 principle I use that a lot when I'm building AI systems for businesses, right? I ensure that most of the features that I build, 20% of the features that I build solve 80% of their problems. You get it? Yes. And there's a very good strategy you can always look at. Yeah. So this brings us to the end of today's lesson on project management frameworks. Next, we'll discuss another amazing topic under project management tools. And I want to see you there. Take good care of yourself. Ensure you watch the video over and over, get to understand it, and practice how to use the various project management tools. Thank you very much for your time. Have a nice day.